Ready.
Hi, Aaron.
Hello.
Hey, it's good to have you here today.
Fantastic.
For all of those of you who are watching, I'm here with Aaron Parnell today. He is known as the reposturing genius,
The posture genius.
posture genius. Yeah.
Yes.
So I've known Aaron for a number of years as the inventor of reposturing dynamics. So that's why I'm still thinking reposturing. So Aaron, I'm going to give you guys a little bio about Aaron. It says it takes 10,000 hours to achieve mastery in a skill, but located in the heart of Silicon Valley, posture genius Aaron Parnell has spent over 100,000 hours helping athletes, executives, supermodels, students, and soccer moms in a career that spans over 4 decades. Why is he doing that? Because there are over 50 health conditions related to poor posture affecting over 50 million people daily with stiffness, joint pain, low productivity, and premature aging. And there is no safe surgery or medicine to restore good posture. Parnell makes it possible to be fit, flexible, and fabulous at any age with great posture. Now that's such an interesting specialty to be in. And I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, how on earth did you come to be a posture genius? And so I was wondering if you could, first of all, kind of tell me what your mission is, but then give us your backstory, how you got to be where you are now, how you grew up maybe, how you got to be in California, how you got to be involved in the whole posture business.
Wow. Okay. Let's see if I can take them in order. So thanks for this is a really good question. All right. Here's I'm going to give you the best synopsis possible. Well,
we've got plenty of time, so it doesn't have to be too much of a synopsis.
Okay. My mission is to revolutionize health and healing on the planet. And I've often wondered, well, God, if you want me to revolutionize health and healing, why did you make me a posture expert? Because when I first got the message from God when I was still in my 20s, I couldn't put the two together. There was vitality, and then there was posture. And when I wrote my first book, Living with Vitality, I kept people getting feedback from people like, that dog when it turns its head to the side, like, what are you talking about? Well, I got that a lot when I was talking about vitality in the very early days. And so, well, why are you talking about vitality when you're a posture expert? So here's the backstory.
Well, let me just jump in here for a second.
Right.
I don't think that would be any surprise to Jordan Peterson fans, because his very first rule for life is to stand up straight with your shoulders back.
That's right. That's right. When he said that, I was like, okay, I get this guy. This guy gets me. And he did his study on lobsters, but then I have real examples that I reference in my book that I've seen in real life, how people posture themselves. And very often I walk into a store and they automatically assume that I'm the guy in charge. So whether it's Costco or Target or the auto supply store, they look at me like, you must be the manager. Can you tell me how to find such and such? Because I carry myself with confidence, like I'm large and in charge, even if I'm not in charge. And I have to often say to myself, I am not in charge here. I am not in charge here, because one of the things that I discovered is that your body tells your face what it's thinking. And so if you're slouching, your face will change countenance. And based on your countenance, people will treat you a certain way. They'll speak to you a certain way. They'll expect you to speak to them a certain way. And the same thing will happen in reverse. If you hold a frown on your face, it will tell your brain, you feel bad, you're uncomfortable. And and you're in pain, even if you're not in pain, and then your body has to respond. So it all goes together. So when I heard Jordan Peterson talk about posture, I thought, okay, this guy understands, understands the game and understands how important posture is to who you are being as a person, who you tell yourself you are, and who you tell other people who you are. And perhaps one day I'll get a chance to be in the same room with them and have a conversation with them. And of course, although I think a lot of what he has to say is very interesting, I'm most interested in what he has to say about posture, because it will when people understand the backstory of posture more than what he's talked about, then they will understand how important it is to the entire quality, the quality of their entire lives.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that is kind of interesting is that the best interview with him that I have seen is the one that he did with Dr. Oz. He has a very long interview with Dr. Oz, and it's really the best interview I've seen. Dr. Oz was such a great interviewer. And I know Dr. Oz is really interested in health and vitality. So it seems like there's a good fit there.
I think there's a good fit. I saw that interview, and I would say that of the many people who are out there willing to, put their life at risk and say the truth, or say the truth as they see it. Dr. Oz is certainly on the leading edge, and so is Jordan Peterson. For the two of them to to be in the same room, sit down comfortably, quietly, have a conversation about many different things. It was great to see these two, to me, paragons of thought leadership speaking to each other. And of course, my perspective is, if you talk about posture as it relates to quality of life and health, that's the missing element. So I feel like Dr. Oz, although he might agree that posture is good posture is good and bad posture is bad, he may not have done the research and the study and all the experiences that I've had specific to posture. And so, I feel like one day there'll be an opportunity for me to have this conversation with Dr. Oz in person, as well as as Jordan Peterson.
Hey, I'll sign up to have a seat at that one. So now tell me about how you grew up, Aaron.
So, my childhood started out in Brooklyn, New York. My parents, loving and caring, they stayed married long enough to have 3 kids. And then it was, life's journey took them in opposite directions. My mom eventually moved to California, and I lived with my father first with grandma, and then I lived with my father for a few years. And my siblings stayed at my grandmother's house. And then my mother, after being in California, she was thinking that she was going to come out to California to stay a month and hang out with her cousin out here. And she decided to stay, and a year later, she sent for the kids. So I finished elementary school in Brooklyn. I grew up, I would say, largely in Crown Heights, and then moved to East Flatbush, where my father lived, and left East Flatbush to come out to Oakland, California. Yeah, and so I started junior high school in Oakland, and finished high school in Oakland. And I was when I was in high school, I had a job. It was a job in a shoe store. And, at that time, I'm 14, 15 years old. And a little old lady came in, and, she was buying slippers. And for some reason, she said, "Oh, gee, it sure would be nice to have a foot massage." And, me being an obedient young person, I just started giving her a foot massage. And she said, "Oh, that's so nice. Can you do the other foot? And oh, by the way, I'll take 2 pairs of those shoes." And so I started doing foot massages when I was selling shoes in the shoe store. And, and it was a concession inside of a Mervyn's department store at the time. And we're talking about 1974 75, 76, 77, and I finally graduated from high school in 78. So I went, by the time I got out of high school, I graduated from doing just foot massages to more massaging the calf. The same kind of thing you would get if you went to a nail salon that did foot massage. They would massage your calf and your feet. Well, I did that with selling shoes, and I didn't know this until later, shortly before I left that job, that I was one of the top salespeople in the in the company out of 19 stores. So I got a lot of positive feedback, but I also fell in love with the body. I thought to myself, wow, if this happens when you just massage the feet, what will happen if you massage the entire body? So when I went away to college, to Pacific Union College up in Napa Valley. It's a Seventh-day Adventist college. And I met a woman who was half Swedish, and her mother taught her traditional Swedish massage. So I studied with her. Then I studied with Auntie Margaret. So I learned, what was the name of that? Oh, Lomi Lomi Hawaiian massage. I also learned shiatsu with a background in Chinese medicine, as well as polarity therapy. Now, I took all those extra massage classes concomitant with my formal academic training, because I was a physical therapy major in college. So as a physical therapy major in college, I really wanted to apply my skills right away to make sure that by the time I graduated, I would have really good hands-on skills to be a really good physical therapist one day. So after 2 years of academics for physical therapy, where it's anatomy, physiology, physics, and many other courses, I went to the hospital to see what physical therapists really do in the hospital. And that's when I realized that being in a hospital is a very highly regulated environment. And me being creative and innovative wouldn't bode well for career success in a highly regulated environment. And so I started investigating the chiropractic profession. And I went to visit 5 different chiropractors and a chiropractic school. So I changed my major from physical therapy to chiropractic, finished all my prereqs for physical therapy, which I applied directly to an education in chiropractic. But while I was in chiropractic school, I moved back to the Bay Area, back to Life West Chiropractic College in Hayward. And I started a sports massage clientele. A lot of my clients were athletes as well as executives who were training for events. And from 1982 to 1984, most of my clientele were some kind of athletes who were training for things. And then in January of 1984, I had read a book called Sports Massage, and it was written by Jack Maar, who was the official Olympic masseur for the U.S. Olympic equestrian team. He not only worked on the riders, but he also worked on the horses. And what I've discovered was that everything that he was applying with shiatsu and Swedish massage on the horses and the riders, I was doing in my sports massage with my clientele. So I called him up and he said, Aaron, here's this extra thing. And he told me a couple of extra tips. And when you combine the breath with the stretch, you get, twice the response for the muscle. And, I was fascinated by this, and I started applying that breath, stretch, massage combination with my athlete clients. Now, I had 3 world-class athlete clients at the time, 2 of whom actually went to the Olympics. I worked with Rod Dixon, who was from New Zealand, and he was a marathoner. And I worked with Nancy Dietz, who went as the 3rd person, the alternate, behind Joan Benoit, and I don't know the other athlete's name. So I had 2 athletes who went to the Olympics. Well, in that conversation I had with Jack Maar, he said, Aaron, those people down in Los Angeles, they keep trying to get me to go to Los Angeles and and work on this sports massage team thing. And I'm just not interested. He, based on the East Coast, he said, you know what, I've had it. My days are over. And I said, well, wait a minute, can you give me the phone number? And so that's where I began my trajectory toward being on the first Olympic sports massage team. Wind the clock forward, there were 2,000 applicants for the sports massage team, and there were 35 chosen. I was among the 35 chosen. I worked with athletes from all over the world, from 42 countries, in every one of the 52 sports in the Los Angeles Olympics. And what I noticed was this massage, stretch, breath combination was helping the athletes recover quicker, get better times, not get injured when they went all out. So their maximums were higher when it came to performance. And athletes were coming back to me and saying, hey, Aaron, can you do that again? Because I just took 3/100ths of a second off my best time. And you and I know every 100th of a second counts in the Olympics. It could mean like, who was that guy? To he's that guy, or that woman. Yeah. So by the end of the summer, I realized that even though I had taken the summer off from chiropractic college and I had a really good, solid education academically, both from my prereqs for physical therapy as well as in chiropractic college, when I got to the end of the summer, and we're maybe 2 days before the Olympics were over, I realized that I really enjoy working with people who are doing something with their bodies, who want to be healthy. And I was helping world-class athletes even get better at their game. They were all national champions. But if I could do something that would add value to their experience of being an athlete, it could make the difference between, being able to remember that they were in the Olympics back in the day, to somebody who leaves a legacy for themselves, their families, and their countries. So I thought, okay, I really want to work with people who are doing something with their bodies. And that's when I realized that there is no formal education in that can train, prepare, and certify you to be that person, that professional, the health professional who can help people get better at their game. All healthcare education at that time, even in sports medicine, was built around the paradigm of what to do with the athlete after they're injured, what to do with the athlete when they have a setback, or when you have a poor training or an overtraining injury. And my job on the sports massage team was to make sure they didn't get those injuries. They weren't that they were prepared to increase their training and their performance and reduce their recovery time. So that's when I realized, hey, I'm onto something here. And even though no one else is doing it, this is something I've got to pursue. I went back to school in the fall, and I still kept thinking, there's something here. And even though my education was preparing me to serve people after they're injured, I still had part of my education in chiropractic college to focus on what the body is supposed to do when it's at its best. And
okay, so I have a little something I want to throw in here, because this reminds me of maybe, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago. I was working for a while with, I had a hip injury because of a broken foot and all kinds of problems. And I was working with an acupuncturist, and he was really good, and he was helping me a lot. And his story was that he had trained as a surgeon, and had worked as a surgeon for a while. But after he had worked as a surgeon, he realized, wait a minute, I'm only getting people after they're already damaged, right? So how can I help people so they don't get to the place where they need surgery? And that reminds me of what you're talking about. You're trying to get people before they need surgery, before they need that kind of an intervention, and just help them to have a better life without all those things, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And,
You
and
bring up
the other thing
interesting
that
point.
came up to me was that when you were talking about your education, you were talking about all the classes you took, and one of the classes was physics.
Mm-hmm.
Now, physics, what does physics have to do with the human body?
Oh my gosh. Let's say in brief, there's a branch of physics called biophysics, and one of the classic examples of a test question that we had to make sure we passed in order to get out of class and pass the class. The question was, if a 150-pound person is in a car going forward and then they run into a wall and they stop moving, how fast would they have to be going in order to transect the spinal cord? They become a quadriplegic to the rest of their life. And the quick answer is 35 miles an hour. But we had to calculate how, the weight of the person, the speed, and, whether they were belted in or not. These are all things you have to learn about how force, gravity, speed, weight, direction, force vectors all affect how healthy a person is able to be, or how well they're able to withstand trauma or an event. If you trip over a sprinkler and you're way out of the, across your garden, how tall does a sprinkler have to be before you're going to hit your head and crack your skull open? Or if you slip down some stairs, what will happen? Are you going to hit your butt? Are you going to hit your head? These are all things that matter with the subject of biophysics. And so the more you can reason this out, the more you can understand how a sport, or injuries in a sport, or even even when you want to optimize sports performance, what things need to happen to the tissues of the body, or the muscles of the body, of the bones of the body, in order to optimize the application of force through the bones and in the direction you want to go. So I'm with the background of physics, especially in biophysics, I'm able to reason through, how to help an athlete who's already at the top of their game and wants more, or wants to be able to not only become champion, but also to set a world record, for example. And
so that takes us back to when you went back to school after being a sports massage therapist at the Olympics. You had this new idea. So I didn't want to interrupt you. You've got this new idea about
I was on a roll.
People's lives better. And then what happened?
And then I got back from the Olympics, and many of my clients who had been mainly sports massage clients started asking me, just miraculously, they started asking me to take them to the gym, or can I show them what to do to work out to get better at their sport, or to have a better workout. And the first few people, I just wrote out the workout, and I said, well, here's your workout. And they said, can you take me to the gym and show me how to do all this stuff? And so then that began the addition of the personal fitness training. And at that time, there were very, very few personal trainers in the business at all. The only other one I knew about when I first started was Jake Steinfeld, who was the personal trainer to the Stars back in 1984. And he created eventually the brand of Body by Jake. So, and then later on, more fitness trainers got into the business. But when I started out, when I came back from the Olympics, my clients were asking me to take them to the gym, and I became an amazing fitness trainer with a busy clientele. And so their training might include sports massage and fitness training. Men, women, I might work out in the park course. I had a couple fly me and my partner to their vacation home in Hawaii, and they didn't have any fitness equipment. I had to make some. So I used a rope, a towel, a chair, a closet dowel and created a whole small gym in their vacation home. So, these are all things that my creativity lended itself well for. So imagine and in the beginning, I was young and I didn't have any money, and I started driving around to my clients all over the Bay Area, and very often I would circumnavigate my way around the Bay Area. By the spring after the Olympics, God orchestrated my life so that it was time for me to leave school, and so without completing my chiropractic degree, I was already well into my career, and I didn't even realize it. I would say between 1984, 85 till 1994, I drove around to my clients. I eventually bought a house with my earnings, and bought a little condo right here in Silicon Valley, and written lots of articles about all the things I discovered. And by about 1994, one of my clients was a marketing executive, Burke Franklin from a business tools company. He would write software. And he said, Aaron, I know a bunch of your clients, and we all agree that this stuff's amazing. And even though one person gets out of pain, his own sports performance, he was a martial artist at the time, and somebody else just got better looking, everybody agrees that our posture improves. And so even though our results are different, since our posture improves, why don't you call this reposturing? And thank you, Burke Franklin, for giving me a good idea, because I wound up trademarking reposturing. And so that's the transition that happened. I wasn't trying to be a posture expert when I started out. I was trying to optimize, health and sports performance, and give people relief from the aches and pains that they were having from their lifestyles. So that same year, another miracle occurred, and that is that some of my clients said, "Hey, Aaron, I'd like to be able to learn how to do this, because it looks like you're having fun, and it looks like you're helping people in a really good way that's unique, that there's no training for. So can you teach us how to do what you're doing?" And that's when I did my first training in 1994. Wind the clock forward.
I'm guessing that going into the business of training others to do it also forced you to think through exactly what it was you were doing.
Yes.
So you could make it accessible to other people, and that you also learned a lot yourself, because I know every time I try to teach something to somebody, I learn it way better. Right?
Yes, it really is like that, where it's one of those things when the teacher is ready, the student appears, and when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And so for me, these students came to me, and they appeared in my life because it was time for me to teach. And now 25 years later, I have 18 courses that are structured, and then I have another half a dozen courses that I'm working on that I could teach at any moment now. And I've written over 100 articles. I've written 4 books, and I have several brands and the categories I've started. So this has been quite the journey.
So your newest book is called
The Slouching Superhero's Guide to Achieving Great Posture.
The Slouching Superhero. How did you come up with that title?
Okay, see if I can put this together. One of the things that I discovered working in the Olympics is that regardless of the sport, for each Olympian, every Olympian can tell you a story about somehow they're able to reach some higher part of themselves in a measurable way. And they would run marathons, they would swim miles, because it helps them get in touch with a part of themselves. And somehow, when they reach that part of themselves, they feel closest to God than any other time in their lives. And I feel like inside of every one of us is that superhero who has some special gift, some special passion that will express itself, under ideal circumstances. And for Olympic athletes, they have a sport that somebody is giving prizes and fabulous opportunities to them for. But each one of us has a thing that we're both gifted in and brings passion and freedom and a sense of self-freedom in our lives. So what I find when people have poor posture is that they miss out on experiencing themselves at their best. And I've been with people who are reaching getting in touch with themselves at their best. And sometimes it's a sport, sometimes it's a business, sometimes it's in traveling, sometimes it's in knitting or playing music, but they have a way to get in touch with themselves. And I find that when people have poor posture, they surrender access to reaching that part of themselves.
Wow.
So,
whoa. That's pretty amazing. So they surrender access to that portion of themselves. My brain is kind of exploding here.
My brain exploded. I know what you mean.
So I had a discussion yesterday, which is online already, where we were looking at the end of one of Jordan Peterson's books.
Okay.
A book called Maps of Meaning. And we were reading through a portion of it and then talking about it. And one of the lines from it was, truth tears down what lack of faith erects. So
I get it.
So I got to thinking about that, like, that's a very condensed idea. It's like a data compression device, because when you open it up, all kinds of stuff tumbles out.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it that lack of faith erects? And I started to think in my own life, when I am lacking faith, what gets erected are all kinds of walls. I put up all kinds of walls around myself to protect myself, or maybe I start trying to build something that's going to make myself feel better based on my own strength, instead of really trusting in what God might have for me. But what it all comes down to really is fear, right? So fear erects these things in our life that keep us from getting where we might otherwise get. But truth tears down what lack of faith erects. And so when you're talking about posture being the thing that allows a person to access that thing within themselves, it's like a plumb line tells us where everything lines up. And that's very much like what posture is. It's like God's plumb line almost in our bodies, so that when our bodies are lined up along the spine, that's our true selves, right? I mean, there's something really big there. I'm just like,
there is something really big in there.
Yeah.
You and I had a conversation about stochastic resonance.
Yeah.
And part of it might look like it's really random, but I don't think that. There is a voice, and I'm going to say it's the voice of God, speaking to us about our destiny and about his or her plan for us, and for our lives, our skills to be applied to help God's other children. And stochastic resonance is the sense of alignment that we have with the guiding force in our lives, or guiding force says in our lives. So that might mean the physical body's agreement with gravity, the physical body's interaction with gravity. And in our minds, it's our attunement to each other as a part of our community, or to the voice of our master when we are listening. For example, you know, I've been at playground, and there are a lot of kids who are running around, but when their mother calls them Billy, all of a sudden nobody looks up except Billy, because he knows the sound of his mother's voice. And when we have a commitment, or we're on a trajectory towards something that is our destiny, that is our calling, we have stochastic resonance with that force. It becomes an immutable force that continues to draw us and inform us. And so when we have great posture, we are lining our entire body and our frame, as well as our soft tissues up, so that we have the most ideal relationship with gravity, so that the weight bearing happens through the bones at the right arrangement, and the force and the movement happens in balance with symmetry and freedom that we're supposed to have. We're supposed to be strong, we're supposed to be flexible, and we're supposed to have great posture.
Okay, so I remember you telling me one time that the spine is kind of like, well, that the connecting tissues and the muscles are kind of like the girders on the Golden Gate Bridge, and our spine is kind of like bricks that are stacked up. And that if anything is too tight on one side or the other, those bricks will get pulled out of place.
Yes.
Okay.
You know, the example that I give when I'm working with people is to really understand. You know, of course, I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and my favorite bridge is the Golden Gate Bridge. We have other bridges that are like that, but they're suspension bridges. Imagine you've got your two towers, and imagine Sausalito's on this side and San Francisco's on that side. And you've got your two towers. But those towers are designed to carry the weight of the roadbed and the cars traveling across it. And what keeps the towers relatively upright is the existence of the cables that go from one side to the other. And it's the relationship between the cables and the tower that makes the bridge functional. We have those kinds of cables all throughout our whole body. We have cables that go from the feet through the pelvis to the other foot. Some go around the body, some go over the head. And when we are correcting posture here at the Vitality Center in San Mateo, as well as anybody else who's ever taken any of my reposturing trainings, wherever they are in the world, they are creating an optimal relationship between the bones and those myofascial meridians, those body's inner cables.
Myofascial meridians, okay.
Well, I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. I have a colleague, Thomas Myers, who has named those anatomy trains, and that's his brand of work. Because he reasoned that these myofascial meridians are connected in one place, and they travel even across joints to the next bone, and then they travel some more places to another bone, and they tie regions of the body to each other. So my right hand is connected to my left hand, and my right hand is also connected to my foot. It's also connected to my head. And so every part of the body is connected to every other part of the body through the system of myofascial meridians. And so you wind up with a suspensory relationship for the myofascial meridians and a compressive relationship for the bones. And the two of them together create the stability throughout movements that we need to have to add quality to our lives.
Wow. What it made me think of when you were talking about all these different parts of the body being connected is when it talks in the scripture about each of us is part of the body of Christ, and the way that we serve one another and help one another and love one another makes the whole body work, even though all the parts are different. you know, the nose is not the hand and the hand is not the foot, but they all have to work together. And that's certainly true with the human body.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I notice that when my hip is off, my big toe hurts. So
Isn't that amazing?
yeah.
And that's because the pelvis itself, the angle of the pelvis, or the orientation of the pelvis, directs force and gravity to the right parts of the foot, depending on how the foot is turned. So the pelvis and the knee and the foot all need to be lined up with each other so that gravity can do an optimal job in force transfer when you're walking, when you're running, and to your sit bones when you're sitting in a chair.
So would you say that you have learned more about physics since you started on this path? Or would you say that what you knew about physics to start with was enough to help you understand what you were doing? I mean, what's the relationship there?
I would
did you
say
gain
that
insights into physics because of what you learned about the human body?
you know, I could probably teach a really good physics course these days. To me, yes, I learned quite a bit in physics. It was my not only one of my best subjects, but also one of my favorite subjects, to learn how things interact with each other. Even my favorite sport, I play billiards. I'm utilizing the laws of physics and rotation and force and angle and velocity to affect, you know, my shots around the table. So even my play is physics, or the application of physics. And I would say that it is my understanding of the body that helps me understand the physics in our lives. I'll give you an example. One of my clients is builds bridges right here in the San Francisco Bay Area and all throughout California. And there was a special build of the bridge that goes from what they call the Devil's Slide bypass. Devil's Slide is an area right outside of San Francisco, and it was notorious for having landslides from the road. So people would drive off the road and just go down and be like a 200-foot drop, and it was certain death. And every year, a little bit more of that road would erode. And finally, they said, you know what? We need to just have an inland bypass of the Devil's Slide. We can't just run cars and traffic on the edge of the cliff every day like we've been doing it. So he built this bridge, and the bridge was going over a protected area where it was the breeding ground for the red-legged frog. And in order to protect the habitat of the red-legged frog, they had to build the bridge in a way where you're standing on this part of the bridge and you build that part of the bridge. And when that's all dry and finished, you go to there and you build the next part of the bridge. And so that's an unusual kind of build, but it's been done, and it was so rare. I went out to see what this was like. I was just telling me about it. And what I discovered was the inside of the bridge is hollow. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, this is like bones. This bridge is built like bones. The hard exterior reinforced by fibers that go in left and right, front to back. There are sections of the bridge that are tied, this section is tied to that section, but when they put the whole bridge together, they tie end to end together, and they also tie it across. So, the bridge is very, very stable and sturdy and resilient as well, just like bones.
Do you think that the builders got that idea from looking at bones, or do you think that bones are constructed that way because it's just the best way to build something, and so when builders start looking for the best way to build something, that's what they come up with in their brains?
As a what do you call it, a student of engineering disasters, they came to build bridges like this because of many bridge building disasters that have occurred throughout history, because they didn't come to that conclusion right away. But they've discovered that the most resilient way to make a bridge is to tie piece to piece, end to end, and across. in a way that no matter what the wind is, what the weight is, or what the weather might do to a bridge, or even earth movement, the bridge will still stay intact no matter what happens. And so unfortunately, it took them a long time to get close to the way God made the body in the first place.
Yeah, well, so my husband, who is an engineer, has told me many times in the past that one of the things that bridge builders have to worry about is this issue with resonance. Now, not stochastic resonance, but just ordinary resonance, because sometimes at certain speeds, vehicles going across, or the wind at a certain tone of wind can set up a resonance where it's at exactly the same frequency, as the bridge is operating on, and the bridge will just go crazy and start waving all over the place. And I know that's caused a lot of failures in the past, but probably this kind of thing you're talking about that builds in this flexibility would overcome that problem.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, I was just watching a bridge disasters analysis.
Oh, you were serious. You really are a student of bridge disaster.
I really do watch, because I love physics, and to me, the greatest application of physics is when you have to build a bridge, and bridges that last follow all the proper laws of physics. And so whether the bridge is an arch or a suspensory structure, there are some laws of physics that really work, and there are some that definitely don't work. And you make the point about the resonance or the frequency. There's that bridge, I forgot what city it was in, but they were really proud of it. It was built in 1967, and then one day the wind just made the thing wobble, and then it just disintegrated. And there was another bridge in Italy that they instead of using cables, they took long bars, rods.
Rebar?
Yeah. So they would tie these two big ends at the end with one long bar in the middle, and they would tie this one and tie another one that way, and it would go all the way across. Well, weather, as it would happen, the weather and the cooling made one part fail. It broke, and the other side couldn't carry the weight, and then the other side broke, and then the entire bridge just disintegrated, fell right into the ravine below. 43 people died, and the region that was tied together with the existence of this bridge has been collapsed. The economies collapsed. Stores had to close. Restaurants had to close. People couldn't get supplies and goods. And so when things fail, many things also fail as a result of it. And this is one of the reasons why it's so important that I believe that you take care of your body, you take care of your structural body. Sure, you can eat better and have good nutrition. You can, have a nice environment, but if your posture is poor, if your structure is collapsing in on itself with time and age, then over time you're going to have a collapse failure. Your body's going to implode on itself, and it won't work the way it's supposed to. It's supposed to work when it's at its best. So, my commitment is to make sure that people understand the physics, the laws of physics that affect their quality of life. And the earlier you affect change and start to improve the structure of your body, the better the trajectory of quality of life, and the higher quality of your longevity you will have. And many of the problems that people associate with old age really aren't problems that are age related. It's actually more lifestyle related. And my biggest concern now is that with our sedentary lives, we are having not only more sedentary lives, just sitting down, but we have our cell phones, and with our phones we have our head cocked forward toward our phone. We are focusing on something that's 3 to 4 inches away from our face at best. Sometimes it's a whole foot, but you're leaning over to get to it. So I think a lot of the kids, especially those who are in middle school right now, they're going to have problems that have been previously associated with age. They will have those problems when they're 30, maybe 40 years old. And they won't have to wait that long to start having dropped head syndrome. Right now they have forward head syndrome or forward head posture, but that's only the beginning of a problem. If you wind that clock forward, 10, 15, 20 years, then they're going to have what they call dropped head syndrome. You ever seen one of those old people who can't pick up their head, and because it's just resting on with their chin on their chest, because they didn't strengthen the upper back and the neck muscles to pull the head upright and the shoulders back so that the neck can be upright. So I have a big concern about this, and more people should be concerned about this. That's why I say it's a looming epidemic hiding in plain sight, because we already have many, many problems associated with poor posture, including idiopathic, means heart, high blood pressure, idiopathic this blood pressure, and shortness of breath. And I say idiopathic and that's because very often, let's say often enough, a person will come in and say, I'm having trouble getting a breath in. They go to the doctor, they go to the ER with shortness of breath, they get checked out, and their lung capacity is fine, and by medical standards, their blood pressure is fine. They don't have any problems with their circulation. But the problem they have is their shoulders are sitting on top of their rib cage, and the rib cage can't expand to make full capacity breathing possible for the lungs. And because there's the weight of the head, plus the weight of the shoulders and the weight of the arms compressing on the heart, now the heart has to work harder in order to expand and get blood through the circulation through the entire body. And so
that's my strongest memory of the first time I ever saw you, and you did a treatment for me. On my way home, first of all, I was sitting up in my car, probably 3 inches higher than I had been when I came, but I was just breathing so freely and so filled. I almost passed out. I got so much oxygen. I hadn't ever had that much oxygen in my life. And just that beautiful high that you get almost from getting lots and lots of air sucking in when you breathe. It was really a new experience for me, which brings me to clarify something. So we started out talking about sports medicine, but you went beyond that to where now you treat all kinds of people, right? You're looking at finding vitality and fitness for people of all ages and all fitness levels, right?
Yes, I get little old ladies come in, and I get young people. Yeah, and I get young people, and probably if some of my more mature clients come in with postural issues, I'm not surprised by that. The thing that I'm surprised and depressed by sometimes is when I have a 16-year-old who comes in and they've got the same problems a 60-year-old has or a 70-year-old has, because their shoulders are curled forward and their heads forward, and because they've been looking at their phone, and they've been sitting full lotus with their phones in their face, and they've got their laptop in their lap, all curled over their bodies, and now they have no back strength, because for them, exercise is playing video games that simulate exercise, and so they wind up with weak back muscles, So they lose their height over time because their muscles just aren't strong enough to hold them upright. And these kids are having the problems even in their teenage years. I've had 28-year-olds who come in with hip problems because they've been wearing baggy pants down to their butt, and they have to turn their legs out sideways to keep the pants from falling off their body.
Oh my God. So those baggy pants have more than one problem, right?
They're going to cause all kinds of problems. And it's one of those things, I haven't figured out how to make wearing a belt cool, cooler than having your pants down below your hips. And I haven't figured that out, and nor have I figured out how to en masse, start the trend of women wearing lower heeled shoes. So, you got to pick which battle you're going to fight and win.
Well, so I really like the fact that you called your book The Slouching Superhero, because so in that book, do you talk about this principle of how when our posture is at its very best, that's when we can be most in touch with who we can be as individuals? So if that's the case, then one of the really scary things about the future for not just our country, but our world, with all these kids with bad posture, is that they're not going to find their center. They're not going to find what their mission is in life, or the next great inventors, the next great scientists, the next great achievers, the next great doctors are not going to be inspired because they're failing in this physical area.
Let's say that it's entirely possible for people to be smarter and smarter as the generations go by. You and I have kids where our kids have many more opportunities and resources at their fingertips than we had growing up. But the challenge is that if they are not ambitious because they don't have confidence and because their posture is poor, they won't go the extra mile to sell the idea to the public. They might not go the extra mile to step out of their own comfort zone and say, hey, listen, I've got an idea that will help you have a better quality of life. And while we can have millions of our young people being inventive and courageous and make amazing achievements for the advancement of humanity, we're losing some of them. We're losing many of them because they lack the confidence that might come with great posture, or they lack the physical stamina because their lungs and their heart and their frame is not developed enough to be able to sustain how long it takes to stay in the game. Now, granted, it is easier to have a startup in your living room and make millions of dollars in your garage before you need an office. So it's a lot easier for many of our young people than it was for us coming through. I've been 40 years in my career, and I almost died last year from working myself to death. But now, using the technology, I have young people working for me, and they know how to use the technology. And so, my time-honored wisdom and their youth and comfort with the resources, we've got something that we can grow here and scale.
Well, I'm really excited about what you do and what you're going to do in the future, and I hope that our discussion today will inspire many people to find out more about Posture Genius and The Slouching Superhero. Is the book available at Amazon?
The book is available. If you just type in Slouching Superhero, you should get to my book. It's available on Kindle, and it's also available in print. If you have trouble getting the book, hit me back at info@reposturing.com. info at.
I'll put all that in the information below the video so everybody can.
Okay, good.
It. And thank you so much for joining us, Aaron. And I hope that I hope we can get you back on sometime to talk more about all this good stuff.
I'm happy to do it, and you know, you haven't seen yourself at your best until you see yourself with great posture. And so, you know, if you're going to do it anyway, you might as well do it with great posture.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, Aaron.
You're welcome indeed. My pleasure.